Great. Hi. Well, I think the folks on the call for the most part know me. Probably all know me. Yeah. But for the recording, my name is Catherine. I often go by Kat, and I'm currently a farmer. I grow cut flowers, certified organic in Encinitas on 1 acre. And I'm also working with the County of San Diego in the CalFresh Healthy Living Department. And our work is designed to help grow more farmers that have sustainable businesses that can grow food that can feed our CalFresh communities. And through that work, I also get to serve the larger farmer community and work with other farmer organizations throughout San Diego. I've been involved, I got involved with food systems in San Diego, milking goats at City Farmers Nursery back in 2010. They're the gateway into other good, fun farming things. So that was probably back, yeah, I think I say 2010, and working my old job as an engineer, and then switched and went to Costa Rica for 3 months and farmed there and learned more, and came back and found Wild Willow Farm and Education Center, took their farm school program in 2012. And yeah, that was like 12 years ago now. So stuck with Wild Willow for a long time, about 7 years, and worked as an education coordinator and helping coordinate the program, working with the goats and volunteers and field trips. And then I switched part way and I went to go farm at a family farm up in Humboldt County called Shake Fork Community Farm to see, can you make farming an actual viable business outside of the nonprofit sector. And they were making a version of that happen up there. When I came back to San Diego, I got to take on the farm manager role at Wild Willow and did that for 3 years and worked for the Ecology Center, another nonprofit, for 2, 3 years before starting my own business in 2021. And so I got luckily roped back into food systems work with Ellie Igo and the team at CalFresh Healthy Living about, I guess that was almost 2 years ago. So yeah, so I'm back in this world and I get to work one-on-one with a lot of farmers in San Diego, and some of these activities that I've done with them seem like they'd be really helpful for more people outside of just a one-on-one session. And so this course is a compilation of the different tools I use to start my business and have had other farmers use to get their businesses working in a more informed way. And so the course is set up with class and in-class exercises and homework where you're probably going to have to be finishing the exercises outside of class. There are office hours, especially for sessions that are going to have more involved spreadsheeting or more questions, especially crop planning as we get later on and thinking about how we take, you know, really understand the timing to get crops going. That's a lot of spreadsheeting, or if you have software too. We're going to talk about that. So let me pull up. I think it would be helpful to see that the agenda from the class. I think that's working. Yeah. So yeah, here we are. We're kind of going to ground ourselves in like where we are in this moment, and also reconnect with our why of why we got started in this in the first place. I guess I could go on more about goats to tell you how I got my start, but we'll skip that for now. And then you'll be finishing up your SWOT analysis on your own time, and then also start to list the products that your farm offers and sells. And so that's your homework. And then we'll be taking that into the next class when we really start to evaluate and look at the different market streams available to us. And so for those that are watching later on, I really encourage you to attend this class on October 1st to just inform a lively discussion on market streams and how those different products fit into your different farmers market outlets, direct to consumer online sales, perhaps a CSA, wholesale accounts. We're going to be making pros cons lists for each of these and taking really good notes, and actually then hopefully be able to share that out too to more people, but helping us really understand what does it mean to say, oh, we're going to farmers markets. I know when I started my business at Be Worthy, we're like, yeah, we're going to have a flower subscription, man. We have all the friends and they're just going to sign up for it and it's going to be great. And then, yeah, the war in Ukraine happened like a month before we launched our subscription program. And, people were distracted and looking elsewhere, and it just like it didn't work out at all. But we did have this backup plan of wholesale. And so we were able to pivot towards a different market channel. But that thinking that we had was like, oh, the products are just going to sell themselves. It's good to get excited and into something, but then to really understand, okay, what's it take to meet that customer's need, and how is a direct to consumer customer different than a wholesale customer? And so we're going to get to dive into that in these classes. And so we'll start to touch on them in this class too. And then after that, we're going to work to prioritize our different market streams and rate them. And so that we know and we're clear in ourselves, where are we going to put our energy? It's so easy to be really excited about all the different things that is possible. And especially being on a farm, it's so much is possible in terms of value-added products, diverting waste streams and making those into viable products, to the numerous things that you can grow on a farm. So getting really clear for the next year of where your energy is focused helps you just have a sense of confidence and not get distracted by those little ideas and be like, those are exciting. They're going to go in the new ideas section, and I'm going to revisit those, next year when I'm looking again at my marketing plan. So, so we're going to get to know which market that we really want to get into. We're going to start to really think about who our customer is. And so that's this getting to know your customer exercise. So I mentioned before this customer avatar. Again, our Jimbo's clients wants very specific types of flowers. They have to be in a specific type of condition, and it's got to be really, really consistent. But they're also really flexible because they prioritize local, and they really want organic flowers. So we're not going to take advantage of that, but they do need a higher level of product than, say, our friend on the street who's just happy to get a flower of cut zinnias that are only going to last a couple days for them. So that's how we're going to get to know our customer in that class. And then the class kind of shifts. So once we really know our customer, we're going to be talking about how do we meet our customers' needs in terms of our product. So one, we can sell it and market it, and that's kind of a whole nother class in of itself, is your social media and how you're branding. So we're not going to be touching on that in this class, but it's there, and we'll talk about it tangentially. And I have office hours, so happy to discuss branding more in those. But as we're moving into the second half of this course, we're really, how do we get our product ready for somebody at a certain time? So this can be anything from for us, a seasonal wreath, or talking with another gal about her scones. She's like, I'm going to make these pumpkin scones. And so it's, how is she thinking about sourcing those pumpkins at this time of year? Or how am I thinking about making sure I'm drying the red straw flower so that it's ready in time to design with for my Christmas wreaths? Or you're thinking about, I'm working with the school earlier, it's they need tomatoes for the summer growing season. They don't need them in September now. They want them in July. So how can they get tomatoes really early on in the season and prioritize that? And then how can they get cucumbers, not on spring break, but for the other parts of those school years? So this harvest calendar is going to help us take a look at the year and see what's growing when. And that's really important. Just to have that. It's not something you're going to have to keep in your head. We'll put it down on paper or on screen, I guess, and use that as a tool to then start making these numbers work in two ways. One way is we're going to be building enterprise budgets. So if you've ever been excited about spreadsheets or want to get excited about spreadsheets, they're one of my favorite tools on the farm. Um, this class, Making the Numbers Work, we're going to look at how much labor does it actually take to make your product, um, and how much can you expect to like sell that for, and a general idea of those expenses. So labor is our normal number one expense typically. How much can you sell it for? Things like delivery cost, or if you have to buy in goods to make your products work. Rubber bands, boxes, maybe your CSA is short, so you're gonna have to be buying in, lemons from your neighbor's farm to complete that box. Thinking about all the pieces and seeing what does it really take to make a farmer's market work for you, or make a pop-up work, or your CSA work. And so I have different spreadsheets for our different market streams that we will look at in that. And definitely valuing our own time and labor is going to be important there. Next up is going to be the big class on your crop plan. And so we're going to have a couple guest speakers for that one, maybe some other ones too, so from Food Shed that are coming in. But really on your crop plan, taking a look at the different ways to backwards and forwards plan for your crops to be ready when you want them on the farm. So again, that's going to be a spreadsheety one. But we'll also talk about some different software options that are out there that are definitely worth the investment if you're not into spreadsheets. And then the last class I'm really excited about too is, we're looking at our product, where it's going to go. We've started to think of like how much effort and labor is it going to take to get that product to market. And now it's like, how do we actually realize and make that happen? I really want us to think about what it looks like to hire other people on our farms. And even if we're not going to be hiring other people, how do we manage our own time? How do we make sacred time for our weekends so that we're not overworking? How do we build a culture within our business, even if it's just one person, especially if there's multiple people, to have prioritize all the different things that we do. And on that note, I have many different hats that I wear, and so thanks for allowing my humanness as I put this course together and mixed up some times. So prioritizing, I'm not perfect at it, but I'll share some tips I've used, and happy to hear what other people are doing as well to make their farm dreams come true. I wanted to switch gears and hear a little bit more from the folks here on the Zoom, and wanted to start that off by asking you your name, where you're at, what stage of the business you are in, and just a little bit more about like what it is that you are doing or what you hope you're going to be doing. I'll pop that in the chat and just say Michelle too, if there's a convenient time for you to come off mute to share more about you. I'd love that as well. I know you're feeding chickens and birds. That puts it on you, Corey and Jess.
Okay, I'm Corey Knott. This is my wife, Jess.
I'm Jess. We're out in Julian.
We're at the very beginning of the business.
Yes.
It's really just a thought at the moment.
It's a seed. We're planting it.
Yes.
The business idea is to start a fermentation company that has products that are hyper local, focusing on maybe food waste, native plants, and getting people familiar with what those native plants are, what they taste like, how you could use them in recipes and stuff like that, while also supporting like a healthy diet. And yeah, outlook on life by knowing what organisms are feeding you and what breaks down things in the natural world and kind of understanding that side of things.
Yeah. Awesome.
Side of it.
Does that capture it all, Jess?
Yeah.
Yeah.
I guess just to highlight, like we don't have our own farm per se. We do live on land, but I think for this particular idea, we wouldn't be growing our own. We would want to
Mhm.
source from local farmers.
Yeah, and foraging a lot of it.
But
too.
we
Yeah.
are just kind of like Corey manages orchards up here in Julian, so I think a lot of like the crop plan and everything will be relatable for sure.
Great. Thanks for sharing.
Yeah.
Rachel, I saw you come off mute.
Yeah, I can share a little bit. I am Rachel Pettit, and I'm in Crest, just a little bit east of El Cajon. And I have a day job, as I have for the last 15 years, had day jobs working with farmers at various nonprofits. But throughout that time, I've worked for other people on their farms, and then 3 years ago, bought this piece of land, and unfortunately my farm mentor passed away pretty suddenly, and I inherited about 10,000 narcissus flower bulbs. And it's been always, was understood that that would be a project at some point in the future to kind of carry on his legacy.
Mm-hmm.
He didn't have siblings or kids, and he has a lot of rare hybrid flowers. So that was a farm that I worked on for many years, and then has always been dear to my heart. But it just all kind of happened very suddenly, where the bulbs were in need of a home, and I planted them just down the road from me at my sister's house, where she has a bit of extra space. She has 3.5 acres, and there was just like a little, I don't know, eighth of an acre flat bare ground. So 3 years ago, I planted all of them there, and they've kind of just been back burner project, but it is something that I'm always thinking about. I don't know, just carrying on this legacy, although I feel resistance to being a flower farmer. So I think at some point it would be or like being exclusively a flower farmer. So I think at some point it would be, the dream is for it to be like multi-crop, more diversified.
Mm-hmm.
And I also found through all of my time farming that I'm a people person, and farming full time is, in the way that I've done it, has been too isolating. So I will likely always have another job working with people. So yeah, I'm just excited to use this course to kind of flush out some of those ideas.
Perfect. Yeah, thanks for joining us. And Michelle, you're the last one on the call. You want to hop off mute now, or yes?
We'll give it a shot. So yeah, I'm Michelle Bearmar, and I own a farm here in Ramona, Black Mountain Farm. We do pasture-raised poultry for meat and eggs, turkeys for Thanksgiving, and seasonal veggies. I have a couple of farmers markets, and I sell through a farm stand and food shed. Right now, a lot of my eggs go there, and some of my veg. And I would say, I've been doing this for a little while, but I still have so much to learn. It's like, build it and it will come, grow it and they will come. And that is just so not real. The business part of it is so huge. And so I've always struggled with that a little bit, and I'm still trying to put it all together. I think one of the things that really intrigued me about this was the idea of I guess one of my struggles has always been like help, employee type of thing, and then balancing that with the planning and making it all profitable, bringing all of that together and understanding how all that works. I mean, I do have spreadsheets, and I work out of spreadsheets. I'm kind of a nerd too. And so I guess, there's so much there. It's the managing, the scheduling, the pricing. And so, yeah, that's what I'm hoping to get. You'd get, maybe some tools and a little firmer grasp on all that.
Right on. Thanks for sharing, Michelle. Yeah.
Absolutely. Thanks, Kat.
Yeah, those are the real conversations to be had is how do you pay people? What's the pricing? What does numbers mean to us all? Yeah, I guess in that, how do we value ourselves and our time and that why into our business? And that kind of gets into this grounding exercise I'm going to take us into, because figuring out, okay, what's our motivation and drive when the times do get tough? Why are we doing this? Because I think a lot of us aren't necessarily doing it for the money, but we all need to exist and support ourselves and make a sustainable business. And we want something that's going to be thriving and support other people. And we want that to work. And so, not to say money is definitely a driving force, but maybe there's other pieces of that are more important to us, like being outside on the land, feeding people really good food. But even heard Rachel say continuing a legacy, these are real things for us. So I'm just going to take us through. I know you're driving and you're out working. And so I'm going to adapt this a little bit. Because even in these moments, to just take some deep breaths, to just kind of allow at least the day that's happened so far to kind of just wash away in that to-do list of needing to be somewhere, or frustration of somebody that's next to you in the car or doing something silly, or a chicken that's trying to get out. Allowing it all to just be in the space, allowing our shoulders, even where we're at, to be able to just kind of relax and really feeling ourselves in place. So if we're sitting, if we're standing, if we're cooking something on the stove, we are also human doing all the things. And so but find some presence in what you're doing right now. I'm going to shut up a little bit. I'll give you a minute. And just bring some slowness to whatever it is you're doing. Slowing your thoughts, slowing a movement. And in this kind of slower moment, I want you to think back to maybe just a moment ago, or to the day that happened, or this morning, and what's one accomplishment that you had today? Even if it's, I made it out of bed today. That is amazing. What is one thing you want to give yourself some kudos for today? No need to share it. If you want to share it in the chat or pop off mute, you can. No pressure. Okay, because congrats on that thing that you did today. I'm so proud of you for doing that thing and for recognizing yourself, for being in that space. Saying this to hopefully put you in a place of appreciation and gratitude for even just making the action to participate in building something that's bigger than who you are, and just to recognize the importance of acknowledging ourselves, because there's so many things that can be left undone and so much possibility. It can be kind of hard to acknowledge ourselves for being and doing all the amazing things that we're doing in our lives, and within our businesses as well. It's really meaningful work, and it can be really isolating and alone. And so sometimes we're our only cheerleaders, and building that muscle and that tool to support ourselves is a really healthy tool to have. This question's also hopefully going to lead you into a warm, fuzzy feeling of just to bring the first question up, to ground us into our why. It's in the SWOT, but and I popped that in the chat as well. So Rachel, when you're are ready and back on your computer, those documents will be live for you, and for those on email watching this later, now would be a good time to pop those open if you don't already. But this first question that I'm hoping everyone can share a little bit more on with everybody is, what made you start or join your farm? Like, what is the reasons that you got it going? I'm going to share my screen over here. So I've been talking, so I'm going to just keep talking actually right now, to share what made me start Be Worthy Farms. And I think it probably had a lot to do with me feeling like I had so much to give and so many ideas that I wanted to share. And I kept always running into like a structure or a leader or a system that kind of like couldn't hold the capacity for all the ideas that I had, and for rightful reasons. But like, I just felt like I had a lot to give, and I knew it was going to be something great. And so I always had this thought that I wanted to start my own farm, even as I was working for other people. And I knew I was working for others, trying to learn all the different pieces of farming as much as I could before I started my own thing. And yes, that was really important to me. And then the other piece for like what I was growing, I mean, I had so many ideas. I did want to have like a goat grazing business. That's like still one of those like far off dreams. But what happened really was herbs is what drove me in to start my own business, wanting to create access to medicines, to remove barriers to people having control over their own health because they didn't have access to plants and medicine. And that's what drove me in. And I started with other business partners because I knew I couldn't do it alone. So, and that just as we were starting to go through all this marketing and the numbers to make it make sense, the herbs were important to everyone involved. Yet to make the farm make money right away, the flowers were something that we knew we could turn a cash profit on a lot sooner than we could building other pieces. So flowers became the foundation of our business, especially because my rad business partner, Annalie, has been a florist for like 20 plus years. So we had a good like bouncing off spot to go from that as well. And yeah, I did grow a lot of veggies before, but it was a hustle that I think I'd kind of got a little burnt out on. And I wanted herbs to be something that wouldn't be such a hustle. And it's not, but then flowers are way more of a hustle than veggies ever were. So, but here I am in the flower world. So I'm looking to see kind of where it takes me next. But that's that why. Like the herbs got me into this and just like running my own business. So that's my why. Does anybody else want to share a bit more about their why at all? Want to color a bit more of their story?
I can share. a little bit, since I
Thank
feel
you.
like I still have a lot of question marks on my business. But thank you for sharing your story, Kat. That is really inspiring. I I I think it sort of started with like being curious about farming and feeling very removed from like the food system. Um, and so just like working on farms and working on lots of different farms to just try to see what different industries were like,
Mm.
um and also as a way to like balance more stat or yeah more office work, I guess, where I was stationary and spent a lot of time in my head and not a lot of time in my body, so just wanting to like be outside and um learn about something new. That's sort of, I guess, how I found farming. And then I think where I came to the point of wanting to create a business that
Mm.
involves food and farming is sort of dual purpose, but like I did share a big part of it is carrying on this legacy. It just sort of feels like um, meeting Buildable Baron was a bit of destiny in my life, and it feels like an important thing for me to do with part of my time here is to grow those bulbs and share them with other people. But also, I think I'm still figuring out the second piece of my why, which is figuring out how much is someone else's legacy and how much is what is my
Mm.
passion. And
Mm-hmm.
I think
Mm.
growing food crops feels like the draw for me. So um trying to find like, I guess, the balance between those two.
Right. Thanks for sharing. Michelle or Corey, Jess, no pressure.
I can share. Um, hmm. I guess the original reason why I started farming back in the day, I've worked at Coastal Roots as a farmer. Kat has taught me everything I know pretty much.
Same.
Um, and the reason I got into it was because of my health issues. I'm a type 1 diabetic, and I was trying to figure out best ways to take care of myself. And that led to, okay, I can eat these organic foods. And then I was like, well, if I, instead of going out and buying the foods, like how can I grow them at home to feed myself with that instead? Because that seems like the better option. And that led to farming. And then COVID hit and all these different things perfectly aligned to where I could become a farmer. And now that has led to this now, just learning about all the different plants and vegetables and trees and all these different things and the uses of them and the tastes of them. And I've always loved cooking. And so this idea that we're coming to now is kind of a combination of those like really healthy side of things with a love for farming and cooking. And um, yeah, I think that's definitely the main direction that started it all.
Love it.
My kind of why is similar, Rachel, to you as well. I've been working tangentially supporting farmers for years through various programs and roles, and also volunteering back at Ecology Center, which is where we met Kat many years ago, which really kind of sparked, I think for me, a big part of farm life is like, in addition to what Corey said, is like the amazing food and like just it couldn't be fresher, better for you, is the community that it brings together. So that's another really important piece is just, gathering at the farm and the kind of process that you do as a group, typically, whether it's harvest or weeding or processing plants, and just how farm is such a sense of place in addition
Mm.
to what it
Mm.
produces. Um, yeah, so just to layer in on kind of more background to us is that's just like kind of that community piece is important and something we want to bring to our future offering as well.
Beautiful. Do you want to hear from you, Michelle, on I know a lot about
Sorry,
you.
my hands are so goofy. It's just like heart, and I have to unmute.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, I know. It
I feel
is
like I know
a
you
little
so
awkward.
well, but I don't think I know your why story.
You know, it so I have always liked to grow things, plants, animals. I've always been into that. I guess you could say we've always done a bit of homesteading. You know, just like for us and neighbors and things like that. And but I'm like an outdoor person. We're backpackers, backcountry climbers. So we've always had sort of a kind of a connection to the land. And then I took a class years ago, I think like back in 2011-ish at Wild Willow. And I like to say it's like that's a gateway drug to farming, because I was just like so amazed at all the interconnectivity between like the plants and the land and the soil microbes. And I'm definitely, I'm an engineer by training and trade, and I love science and systems, and just the whole farming thing is all about science and systems and making things work. And then and then the community aspect of it, the farmers markets were probably one of the best things I could do, just to really connect with people and customers, and that, I get so much out of that. So I guess in a nutshell, it's the people, it's the land, it's the ability to, actually even just the land that we're on, it was just a giant bare lot that had been overgrazed by like 80 horses. And now in the wintertime, it's green and it's beautiful and there's a lot going on here. And the soil has so much, biodiversity in it. And that part of it, it just, it just really rocks me.
Thank you for sharing, Michelle. Yeah, like the complicated systems of it all. It's and then you bring in the business, and like that's a whole nother set of systems that that maybe aren't as fun to always work in, especially like marketing. And Jess and I were chatting this weekend too about those systems of like is our end goal to like make money, and like we're just trying to lead everybody so that we can make money at the end of it, or is like that end funnel like really intending to like uplift our community and like share with one another, and like the money is kind of just like one of the tools. Our products are just a tool to help us get towards like building community or creating healthy lives. And so I really like that we can get to like reframe this story. I did, hearing in kind of our why, I do want us to think about too, like how much is it about making the money? We're in a business, we have an IRS designation, or going to make an IRS designation. How do you figure out which one? That's a whole other conversation. But do we want to make this like, are we anticipating this is going to take away my, $100,000 salary job, and like I'm going to be making that much money and keep that lifestyle going? Is that like where your mind is? Or are you like, well, I don't really need much, and so I'm just trying to like just make this much money, or I have this other job and I know it's important to me, and this farm is like kind of more of like a passion project on the side. So like one of these key elements is understanding like how much you're going to be like putting into it, because essentially when like things get tough and the farm like isn't quite working well, like that's going to dictate a bit of like how much you lean into like hustle and make a sale versus being like, well, I don't really need the sale, so it's fine if it just kind of goes like off or so and so. That when we're talking about our different consumers too, like that feeds into it as well, how forgiving a client is versus a different client. Yeah, and hopefully I think Alex from Food Shed's going to come in to talk and give that wholesaler perspective a bit, because that's like something they experience too. There's just that element of like, am I going to like respond to this text from a florist on a Saturday? And that's going to like, how much do I really want to make this extra $60 sale from a florist, even though it's on a weekend when like I really need that weekend time off for me. And so like trying to really conceptualize like how much money do I need to make? And like also just like how much am I working in these spaces at a given time? So that we can like prioritize all the pieces of it. Because one of the things that we really did start is like, hey, we are not working weekends. Sometimes we'll work a Saturday, but we really don't want to build a business on something that's going to require us to work these weekends. And like trying to keep that why within the different aspects of our business has helped us like kind of screen out some customers. If we get a little like, oh, I need all these sales, oh, I got to do it for just this little sale. Now it's like, we're saying, okay, yes, I want this customer that's going to be a little bit needy and change their order at the last minute or require me to drive really far away to go and do that, versus being like, no, I can't drive really far away. So actually that's going to help me hyper focus on the clients that will come pick up from me or the clients that I can serve within my like local community. So kind of like help set some of those boundaries in place. So as we're thinking about some of our whys, I want you all also to just, yes, have this passion and this fire, and also really get in touch with like what is important to you as a whole person, so that like your farm can help support those versions of yourself too. Yes. So we're going to kind of switch gears. And I'm glad I said those things too, because as we get into these SWOT analysis, this is one that, yes, it has a lot of questions. And so if you were to really do this fully, I'm guessing it would take you probably 2 hours to like actually go through this and meaningfully answer a lot of these questions, which is why I'm wanted to leave a lot of class time for us to give you time to get going on this, because we're here and you've set aside time already to like go and do this work. And so now is like a great time to keep working on it. I also have office hours next week, same time, so that there's like if you are having a hard time doing it, you have somebody. But maybe this is really exciting, fun stuff and you love this. So I'm excited for you on that. So I'm going to just, I guess, go through some of these questions. I'm wondering, if that's like would be the most helpful too, especially for folks that can't really write down right now, to like be going through these and helping frame some of these conversations too, because it can be hard. I'll point out some of the ones that are like harder or stickier, more confusing for us to answer. So do anyone have any questions or comments before we jump into this SWOT exercise? Okay, cool. So a SWOT is a strengths, weaknesses, opportunities, and threats assessment. It was always something I wanted to skip over in my business planning, but I'm always grateful I did it, as I had to be like, oh, what's your accomplishment for the day? Like, it's important for us to really acknowledge where we're strong and where we might not be as strong, because it can be easy to romanticize I'll use myself as the example of I want to do this like flower subscription CSA. And then I'm like, oh my gosh, that means I have to be on social media like all the time and putting out pitches to like ask people if they want to come take my thing. And I'm like, I'm just not comfortable like putting myself out there like that. And so I really like being more behind the scenes and doing some wholesale stuff. And so, but I'm really strong at making solid connections one on one with people. So, learning a little bit more about myself is part of this. So, all right. So, as we get going and end this, what made you start your farm? The next step is what is your farm's main focus? And so, main focus, what is it that you think that you do? And I would say trying to really keep it to one, maybe two, three at the most. I think Brene Brown or someone said, if you have more than three priorities, you have no priorities. But I guess being a farmer, you have 1,000 priorities. So, but in terms of like what your farm's focus is like, okay, what is your farm's main focus? And that can be so many things. That can be your product, that can be a messaging, that can be an experience. That can be so many things. Yeah, a lot of these questions are meant to help you think things through. If you're like listening to this, you can always pause the recording as well. For those of you that are on the call, I'm just going to keep going. And the next question, what is your greatest asset, physical, financial, etc.? Do you own your land? Like, oh my gosh, were you gifted something? Do you have an incredible physique? So you're really strong, can farm really hard. That can be so many things. Is it your brain? Is it something physical on the land? Really great soil? Do you have a lot of networking and connections? Greatest asset. So top ones that come to mind. The next one is your major sources of profit. And so really, I would say just top two things. What are the things that are going to make you the most money? And think profit too. So that's not just revenue. That's like how much money, you're going to be making at the end of the day. So with the expenses already taken out. And then, I love this question. What differentiates your operation in the market? How are you different than what other people are already doing? Do you have more of a focus on sustainability? Are you woman owned, woman run? People love that, by the way, these days. Who are you connecting with in your markets there? And if you don't really know, too, maybe taking the time to go visit a market and seeing what you like, just like a tangent side note, go to the grocery store, farmers markets, go on Etsy, Pinterest, Instagram, but don't stay on those places too long. We're not comparing ourselves, all right? Not comparing ourselves here. This is such an important question, is what resources do you have available? Like, yes, note family is in there, technical advisors. Do you have a best friend that you can always just vent to? Do you have a massage therapist? A supportive partner? Those are all, sometimes we overlook those, the meaningfulness of the things closest to us as well. What skills do you have personally on the farm to do well? Spreadsheet superpower over here, love it. What are your skills that you think do really well? I like the question. Their most notable achievements in business management specifically, or what, and that goes to the next one too. What do other people see as your strengths too? So business management, you're thinking like you directing people. Do you work with any kind of financial stuff? Have you done the marketing? Have you done any sales or communications? Um, think of those, and then what do other people see as your strengths? What would other people be saying about you? And of course, what other strengths? What else is there that you may not be thinking of? Got plenty of time, so I'm going to actually leave 5 minutes for. We'll come back at 6:35 actually, since we have plenty of time for just those ideas that are fresh in your head to just kind of finish going, writing down thoughts. So I'm going to use this as a little pause for myself.
Hey, Kat, we have a question on number 14. What are your least profitable activities? Would
Oh,
that be like, we lose money when we have to make a bunch of things, but it's inevitable. I don't know. Yeah, how would you describe it?
yeah, yeah. Okay, that would be kind of like um, maybe like a loss leader. Even oftentimes, I think of like green onions. In my opinion, are a lot of work to do all the steps for and clean them. Um,
Yeah.
but on the farmers market table, they look amazing, and they're going to draw people in. So it's something you're gonna do. Or I'll give the example at Be Worthy too. It's not something we're focusing on, but like our dried wreaths and arrangements actually like take a ton of time for us to do. And so they're not as profitable. And even our bouquets, our higher end bouquets take a lot of product and a lot of time, and only Ani and maybe me on a good day can do them. So they become our least profitable, even though they sell for a lot of money. Yeah.
Perfect. Thank you.
Well, yeah. And then I'll pop back on. Yeah, we're in the weaknesses section. And so yeah, really understanding like what expertise do you lack in your business? Where's, that's a nice little indicator for something that you can hire out potentially. When it comes to business management, maybe they say that, but then the only idea ever comes to mind is bookkeeping for me. It's an easy one to farm out. But yeah, just knowing what expertise you lack to. What are your strengths? People person, not a people person. What does your farm not do well? I would say my farm grows a lot of crabgrass, so it's not good at creating space for other things than crabgrass. um, but yeah, what are your biggest expenses? Yeah, thinking of labor. Um, I don't know. I'm actually kind of curious to hear maybe if other people are willing to share what you think some of your biggest expenses are, some things that like you're like, oof, that's like too much to like spend money on. I can't spend money on that. Maybe a common one I hear from other people or have seen in other businesses is like a Google Workspace account. So, oh, maybe it's like, I think it's like, I don't even know how much is it, $90, $100 a year. Like, oh, it's too much. But actually, like, you know, um, in my mind, sometimes I think that's like a really great investment. And so that's why I'm like curious where people think either their biggest expenses or things that they're like, oof, can't spend on. If that's an engaging question or not. It's just my own selfish curiosity.
I mean, that is definitely reasonable, like spending on a website, spending on
Yeah.
Google Workspace, spending on advertising that you don't know that will return. I
Right.
think would be done.
Yeah.
I think definitely materials because we're going to be doing like jars, produce, a lot of salt, and
Mm,
like the jars pretty much you're selling off, like you're not going to get them returned or anything. So that's going to be like always a big expense
Mm,
depending on
yeah.
how like popular it becomes.
could build in, yeah, recycling
Yeah.
incentives. That's a good idea.
That's awesome.
Yeah, I feel similarly. Um, hopefully you guys can hear me okay. I changed
Yes, we
headphones, but
can. Yeah.
okay. Um, sorry if it's loud.
You're great.
I Yeah, I feel similar. I feel like when I mean, I'm just barely going down this road, but when I think of material, equipment, material to build infrastructure, like even just like a wash station or
Mm,
down the line, like the packing shed, every time I think of those investments, I kind of spin out on like, oh, but you can find that material for free somewhere, but then you have to like go track it down. Like we built a earthen outhouse on the property, and even that, like, I think if I actually thought of my time and gas and everything that I did to like get those materials repurposed, it like probably cost a lot more resources than at least buying a few of those things like from Home Depot. But I'm just very resistant to like purchasing things new. And I feel the same way about jars and packaging. Like I've worked for a lot of food businesses that sell at markets, and it's always just been really cringy to see the material, even something like glass that's way better than plastic, but just like watching it get sold and never returned, even though you have a repeat customer in the same location every week, but like training people or making the systems to do the reuse like takes so much energy and effort, and ultimately it's not always in your control. You rely on the consumer. And so those sort of, I guess, investments in the easier or convenient option are really hard for me to like take the plunge.
I love the conversation too, especially about like that time, and like valuing our time and seeing that as like an expense too of yeah, and it's like how do we build that integrity into our purchases too. Yeah. Oh, what's up, Michelle?
Yeah, so I guess and I don't want to seem like a whiner, but when we're talking about understanding, things that we wonder if we can afford, and I'm always talking about this labor, am I using my labor as effectively as I should be? Am I getting out of it what I need to get? Is there another way of doing this? So I would say that's a big one. That's a big one for me.
Yeah, like
I gotta go.
questioning if that was like the good spot to like put the money and like the best use of money too. Yeah, that's a big one, especially dealing with humans. Yeah, expenses, labor. What kind of labor are you purchasing? Runs the gamut of like this person's very new and needs hand holding all the way to this person wants a lot of independence and they want to like, they have their own ideas and are excited to help them grow. And what kind of manager do I have to be for each of those types of people? Yeah, I think it has us thinking too. Again, it's like, where is our time best spent? Oh, this is a really fun conversation too. It's like, especially as we are in our businesses in the day to day, it's, should I be the one out digging crabgrass or should I be like hiring somebody else to be digging the crabgrass? But if I'm hiring somebody else to dig the crabgrass, how am I going to keep that person motivated? Because that's a pretty crabby job, like that's that element of considering those pieces of like where our time and how our time is best spent. And then thinking, what expertise do we lack? I took a class, should be coming up again, called Becoming the Employer of Choice, and with the Fair Share CSA Collective. And it talks a lot about like, how do we create business culture so that maybe if I'm not a great manager, now I know how to be a good manager. And me being very directive in all my instructions actually hasn't been very helpful. Like I've needed to like reel that back and be more affiliative and coaching and using those tools at different times. And so I think it's important to like, note where we being cost, do we have an employee that's just a drain and now that's, that's actually an expense. Do we have emotional expenses, on our farms? Thanks for sharing, everyone. That was a good one. We touched on
that kind of actually.
Go ahead, please.
Sorry.
Yes, no, go ahead.
I just real quick. I think that is inspiring me to mention that. I think something I hope to get out of this course, or maybe out of the SWOT, is making a list of like what are the tasks that I feel like most excited about involving the business, and which ones would be like most arduous, and figuring out like designing my scope of work so that I'm still getting a mix of both of those things, which is inevitable, but I'm more willing to farm out the tedious tasks. And when we talk about labor, like with that outhouse project, because I didn't have like funds for labor, there was a really cool work trade situation with a friend who owns the earth company, the earthen business. And so we had work traders come and, we got to build the thing almost like a barn raiser event, like all hands on deck. And it actually worked out really beautifully. I felt like people were happy to be there, well treated, there was good supervision. But in the end, I realized that because I had 15 volunteers, I was in my kitchen, like cooking all the meals and like setting up all the tents for them. And I didn't actually get to see very much of the building. And my whole point, if I got to choose like which of those tasks was I most excited about, I actually wanted to be hands-on in the building. But because I went with an alternative labor, I ended up doing tasks that I wasn't as excited about, So it wasn't necessarily worth it to go that route.
Yeah, thanks for sharing. We don't always know what we're getting into. And on that note, too, for your request, Rachel, I'll send this in the follow up with the video. I have something called, it's like a roles and responsibilities matrix. I use it a lot in my business. It's like I've listed all the different roles that there are. And then there's like the how excited am I to do this? And then there's the like how competent am I to do this piece? And yeah, it's nice to see those side by side. And then if you're working with somebody else, even, and it's great too to have somebody else do this, even if they're an employee. It's kind of like, oh, where do I feel really confident in some of these tasks, and where am I really motivated? It's a nice spot to see where we're motivated, because it's where we're probably going to be putting most of our energy, is where it's exciting. And then that competency piece too. It's like, oh, if I'm really not confident in something, and I'm not excited about it, okay, that's like your indicator of like, yep, this is where I need some help. So I will share that as a resource.
Cool, thank you.
Yeah, that confidence in the work, man. Me and Squarespace, yeah, I don't know, still pretty low on that one. Cool. So yeah, let's glide through some of them. We have another 15 minutes together here. Some of these other weaknesses is, will the farm be able to withstand price decreases or cycles? That's a relevant question too. War in Ukraine. We're going to have like the election coming up. How is that going to affect people's spending habits? Is it going to drive people more towards like community and supporting small businesses? I think it will. Yeah, but I think we're in a good spot generally, though, with our specific markets that we'll be looking into. What resources does the farm needs? I heard, Rachel, you speak to some of those like infrastructure pieces, equipment, just constant inputs that you're going to have to go through. And then it's like, where are you going to store those things? So, those are very real, like considerations. And making like a side note too, since we've been talking about it, those like startup budgets, having those, noting like the startup process for getting something going is kind of different than your ongoing business costs. And so kind of really knowing, it's like, okay, if I'm getting into a new sales channels or a new venture, like what's the startup cost of, doing that new process going to be? Am I going to need bigger cooler, transportation, storage? And what does that investment to get into this new enterprise look like? So, and the best thing you can do is look, because if we always keep this in our head, it's nice. Let's write it down here on the paper. Let's be honest with like, what do I need to make this happen? And so now it's not just this lingering gorilla in the back of the room. It's something we can actually take a look at. And, that's what the brain is for, to help us like put some structure around it rather than have it lingering in our heart space as a potential blockage for us to grow our businesses. And there he goes. This is the best question, I think, for every farmer. It's the operation wandering, no direct focus or objective. how exciting it can be to try and do all the different pieces. It's amazing how quick and easy it is to wander your business and start thinking of different things. Oh, I want this new color. I want this new variety. And all of a sudden now I've complicated. Now we have like 8 different types of celosia, and now I'm feeling it because the celosias are really hard to manage out in the field. So it can be on like a small scale, to crop selection, to your products, to all the different, avenues you're trying to do, and even brings in your personal stuff too a little bit, with that focus. Like, do we have a big life thing happening that's really distracting for us? That's also really relevant to here, our personal lives. Okay, yes. What might other businesses see as our weaknesses? Maybe that's that denying naysayer voice in your head anyways. That can have a place too, and that doesn't have to stay in the head. What areas do you need to improve? What should you avoid? What are their weaknesses? That's a nice little place to pause for just as you finish your thoughts, because the opportunities and threats are a bit like a different tone. Our strengths and weaknesses are very much like within our control more so, versus these opportunities and threats are a little bit outside. I find that these second ones are, I don't know, they're not as fun for me to talk about, but hopefully we can create some space for some conversation here. So yeah, opportunities. And we're going to get into a lot more of some of these details in later on classes, with our pros and cons list in the next class specifically. And then as we get into like describing our customer, some of this stuff will come back. So, but yeah, it's like what interesting like social patterns are, population profiles, lifestyle changes that are occurring that could benefit the farm. That's, my flower world. I'll just start off by saying the example of the florist I was working with. She's like, there's all these new florists coming on. They're popping up like weeds. And I was like, oh, I guess they kind of are like weeds because there's so many of them. And a lot of people are trying to like do something that brings them joy in their life. And so they're creating these side businesses, side hustles. And then for me as a farm, there's a ton of demand for local flowers because these individuals really care about community and place. And I would say that's probably a bigger trend too, is that people care so much more about the well-being of their communities and supporting small businesses, and they understand the importance of the environment. They may not necessarily know how, but yeah, and what market trends have you observed? And is there any niche markets? Maybe we can open up too if anyone's seen any kind of bigger trends, or if there's a niche market that you're seeing grow. What's going on in the world that you're like, oh, that's interesting to me, and that seems like possibility. I'll speak a little too more then on like market trends, just speaking on behalf of like Food Shed. And my work with the county too is this like institutional buying power is like increasing for local food. And so there's big dollars being put towards the food bank, towards schools, to buy local produce. Granted, local has different definitions, so that like it's easy to weasel your way out of actually buying local. But for those institutions where it is important, there's more money being sent to schools, hospitals, and the food bank to like buy local food. And so it's an increasing trend, and there's a lot of advocacy work to help keep moving like federal and state dollars towards institutions to buy local food. So there's more demand for fresh local veggies. Yeah, I mean, some of this stuff too, if I'm talking about like niche marketing, I mean, man, when I took my like food and farming in FFI course, and we're talking about value added products, and I'm looking into like creating an herbal tea line for the farm. That was like what I kind of started getting the business, and like, oh, well, that can probably make us some money, value added producer grant, yada, yada, yada. And then I'm like, he's having us go on these websites and like typing in zip codes and products through like, I mean, this is the information that like Pepsi is using, and Amazon is to like assess market trends. I mean, these are like huge big things. So of course we don't always know this, but I'm typing in like herbal teas, and they're like, oh yes, the flavored beverage industry is like taking off. And then you go to the store and you're actually like, yeah, no kidding, man, look at how many different hard alcohol kombuchas there are, different kefir waters. Like, just there is such a huge growing trend for different beverages, and now there's non-alcoholic beverages. And so you're like, oh wow, okay, really thinking of that trend, and now maybe there's more of a trend towards like seaweed. So am I still on? Okay, looks like I might have lost connection, but I'm good. Yeah, I'm back.
You're back.
Yay. Is it just us two? I don't see Rachel and Michelle on here.
That's weird. They were. Oh, no, Rachel said she had to hop off.
Oh, okay.
And I think Michelle hopped off
ago.
Oh no, maybe
Michelle
not.
got back on too. Well, that's funny. That all just I hope that like recording kept going on. I was being listened to, man. The big powers that be didn't want people to know about. I choke, or do I? I don't know.
We might make you download the recording in 2 parts. Sometimes
Yes.
that, but
yeah, great. Yeah. So yeah, I was talking about niche marketing and just how there's bigger trends, and it is really important stuff to consider, especially if you're trying to like enter into a literal shelf space on a grocery store. You're like, I'm trying to make a product and fit my product in on that shelf. That's like, how are we differentiated from other, vendors, and thinking of like, yeah, why does that look different? And not trying to be something we're not, but probably just trying to lean into more of like, who are we authentically? I often find that like being ourselves, that sells itself, So I do encourage that. It's easy to build a brand and then become this hollow shell of a company. But that's a whole nother, branding. That can be another side conversation. Happy to chat about. But so we're going through our opportunity section here and just thinking, what other partners are out there, new relationships, events. Like, there's so many cool people. And like, I went to a seminar on partnership marketing, and there's a lot of us, San Diego Seed Company and I did like a promotion talking about straw flower seed giveaway, because we were growing straw flower for them. And man, I got like 500 new followers, thanks to this like partnership on social media. And so now they have like influencers that you can pay. And, I was like, well, that's another rabbit hole. But, how important are these follows or email subscribers? So thinking though too of just going back to what's an authentic relationship and how much energy. I love your stories, Jess and Corey too, about how your friends are starting the Winola Flats market, and like, that's such a lovely partnership right there, and I spoke about Brigitte. Brigitte also gave us a recommendation to get into Jimbo's, and so now we sell at Jimbo's. And another friend helped us get into OB Peoples, and so just like slowly building a name for ourselves. build those relationships. So putting ourselves out there like that. Yeah, and be found too. So how much do we like to be found? So yeah, some of these opportunities, can profitability be improved? Maybe there's something that you just know, like, man, I keep losing money because this, we can't get the flowers out of the field. It's like, okay, so if I hire somebody, I can actually make more money and, yeah, how can I make profitability be improved? Those are probably something you're like, oh, that. Those might already be right on your head. And then that's different, right, than predictable cash flow. So if you're new to cash flow, just thinking of like the traditional, like we are not growing things in the winter as much, and springtime, that is when we have all of our produce is coming on in the summer, so how can we make more predictable cash flow? And so maybe you're thinking like, oh, okay, well, I really want to can my tomato sauce so that I can be having a sales outcome in like December, so that way I have income coming in for during the holiday season, so that I can consistently have cash flow. Or maybe I need to not have an employee year round, so that way I don't have that expense in my lowest income seasons. So yeah, and how can your quality, operations, and inventory management be improved without incurring serious costs? Yeah, there's little things that those are often too the pieces, like when it comes to time. Do I have enough time to do that? Do that little thing? Or bringing into here, what are some of those like integrity pieces that you know what, it's really important. I'm not going to just find the first jar source operation. I'm going to make sure that I have that lined up before I really get my new enterprise up and running. It's like I'm not just going to buy from Uline. So why wouldn't you want to buy from Uline? Look it up. Is there an opportunity to receive higher prices for your production? That's an interesting question, right? And thinking as well, Michelle's on our call, and I know that, selling at a Point Loma market where you can sell all your meat for like a really good price, versus trying to like sell your meat to the communities that really need access to really good food. And so I love what Michelle, what you're doing in terms of thinking of like, how can I get, leverage EBT programs and different climate smart commodity programs to help offset the cost of this for some of your consumers, right? So, or maybe you're thinking of that. There's Big Team Farms. What's her name? Sarah something or another. She wrote a book called Big Team Farms. And she talks about a farmer in New Mexico, and he goes to the Santa Fe farmers market and sells his lettuce mix and lettuce heads for $12, but then he goes and sells his squash down in his own community for 50 cents a pound. And so he can like know the products that where he can still be profitable, and he just sells different products to different communities, and it works out. So that was a fun story from Sarah Lockwood, I believe it was. Big Team Farms, of easy read. It's fun. Yeah, what this is a good one. Like technologies are available that you might use to lower costs or improve marketing. So when we get into crop planning, that's like a good one too. Maybe it's worth it to buy Tend and invest in a software. Maybe it's worth it to get like a Shopify account or something to just make some parts of your business that much easier. I like bit the bullet and now use QuickBooks Online, which I don't like, but they have like a little reader associated. So I just make all my sales directly through the QuickBooks reader. And now I don't have to worry about like importing my Square sales so much and dealing with all those fees and whatnot and integrations. So, yeah, and that's another reason I do still sell some stuff through Stripe through my website. But those integrations help me so that I can like accurately capture all my sales properly. Oh, and there's the what new government policies and programs are available. And that's something great. Like that's why I like working with someone like Food Shed. They're leveraging and finding these opportunities to find those dollars that are happening out there and bring them to farmers. So it's hard to know what those all are. And two, there's just on note, is some dollars coming locally to farms next year. And so if you're listening to this and you have a farm and business or a food business, the Food System Alliance has a grant coming out. I think they're opening it up in like January, and UCSD, Center for Community Health, also has some dollars they received from the state and they're redistributing it. So there's potentially some monies to get some infrastructure working or marketing happening on your business. And so just throwing that out there as seeds if we're thinking like there is some dollars happening. It doesn't happen often. Don't rely on it, but when it's there, it's there. And CAF wanted me to point out too that I think it's the drought recovery program. And so that deadline comes up in October. And so even if, say, because SDG&E just increased their rates so much, and if you run off a well, so if you have your power from usage from last year, and you show your new power usage and that huge increase SDG&E just made, you can actually apply for drought relief. It's a straightforward grant opportunity so that you can offset some of those increased costs of your electricity bill for pumping from your well. There's other reasons too. So if you're impacted by drought, crop losses, etc., that's available. So making that note, that's due next month. And I'm going to wrap us up too with some threats. This one's hard for me to put my mind around. I'm very optimistic, glass half full kind of gal, but they are out there. So have there been any significant changes to the industry that are threatening this? I'm like, you think of like Beyond Meat trying to get into like the meat game, and that can be pushing out our local meat producers. More and more big companies are, trying to claim organic and regenerative when they're really not. And so, we're constantly like battling that uphill battle of like in terms of greenwashing. Any new regulations to make it difficult to be profitable? Well, you're in California, so I don't know. That's the story of doing business here, is there are a lot of regulations to dance around. I don't know how much to say about that. There's a lot of them. Obstacles to your operation. I mean, that's like a very realistic thing. Like, how is your health doing? Like, do you have a recurring shoulder injury, that you got to like work around? Any quirks about your land? Just, you're trying to graze cattle on a mountainside and it's not going to work. You just like think of some of those obstacles, predators and pests and whatnot. So squirrels. Are there any direct competitors reducing your share? That's an interesting question to actually think about, because I do think we're in an age of cooperation more so. And so I do like to think there are millions of people in San Diego. And so there are not a shortage of people that are looking to eat healthy. It's just a matter of figuring out how to get them that food, which is why we're here in this class. But yeah, local competitors, that's, I think of that too. Maybe there's other like kraut companies that your friends are friends with, and are, why their kraut versus your kraut. I mean, that when you get into more of that, the egg space, there's lots of people selling eggs and like, and now a new person starting to come on and sell eggs to Food Shed, and that does kind of cramp your style. And if you're at a farmer's market, sometimes they have like, I couldn't get into a lot of farmers markets because there's already a flower grower there, even though they are importing flowers. It's like that farmer's market isn't going to actually let us in. And so maybe you want to be at a farmer's market that's going to protect you more so and make sure that someone's looking out for you. Yep. Is your operation keeping up with technological changes? That's a big one. How is your website looking? Is it modern? Are you choosing to do you have a way to take Apple Pay? Somebody can just like come in and accept payments. I've chosen not to take Venmo, and that's a whole headache of itself. So I've not done that, but that it all comes at a price, right? So something may be convenient. It doesn't always mean you have to do it. Yeah, get real with yourself. Do you have bad debt or cash flow problems? Do you not have cash? I remember when I first did this, I was like, well, we don't have any products or income. So that was my start to that question. No income. And oh yeah, do you have could any of your farm's weaknesses seriously threaten the operation? That was a thing we wrote. We had a lot of partners when we first started this, and it was like our interpersonal dynamics can threaten the operation, like being really real with how that works, and that's where you get really real with yourself. You're like, well, I have this competing job that makes a lot of money, and that's like yeah, something else. So go back into that weaknesses section, and how real are some of those pieces to threaten your operation. And so it's probably a spot to maybe focus some training, or get some outside support on. And then the big one for us here, natural disasters. Man, like, I know several farms, and my florist and my lawyer's office all got flooded during the big floods. Like that was very attached. Fires, smoke, not accessing your land for a bit. So if something like that happens, power goes out, you can't use your well, do you have backup plans? So those are important to think about. Any other threats? So that wraps us out for an hour and a half together. And I rambled on a bunch there. And so hopefully that was helpful for you all. Very good. I have office hours next Tuesday. So if you want to be sitting and chatting more about any of this, if any of you watchers weren't able to join us today, I'll be there. If you all want to come back and listen again. Otherwise, we'll see you October 1st for our next class. Any lingering questions before we head out for the evening?
Yeah, that was great.
Yeah, thank you, Kat.
Thanks for joining.
Really helpful.
Now everyone go look at the eclipse moon.
Oh, is it visible here in San Diego?
Should be.
I don't think so. I just went outside, unless it's like directly above us.
Oh, it's probably gonna just be rising soon.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. Yeah. Might be missing it.
Thanks, Kat.
Thanks for joining in, Michelle.
Yeah.
Okay. Bye.
See you, Kat. Have a good night.
You too.